Hey folks, hope you're all doing well. So, not too long ago, Kevin at Epic Gardening and myself had the opportunity to sit down and record 7 episodes for his podcast. And these are all focused on gardening's mental health benefits, mindful gardening, how to be getting into gardening, and on top of it being a really fun conversation, it was just a really cool moment for me because in the gardening world and really in the business world, Kevin has been the individual that has absolutely inspired me the most. I'm just kind of absolutely in awe of everything that he's building, both on the company front and on the way that he's fostering and building his community. So a really cool moment for me on that front, and super exciting because we've been able to now upload all those videos onto our YouTube channel here and have it living as its own playlist. So if at any point you want to dive into any of the other episodes, there's a link down in the description that's going to take you to any one of those episodes. Now, the last piece is just that obviously a podcast is audio only, and so what I've done is just taken some kind of like B-roll footage of me harvesting a bunch of garden goodies, and I've got that playing so you can kind of watch that while you listen or do anything in and around the house, the garden, etc. But with that being said, let's go ahead and head to the first episode here.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Epic Gardening Podcast. Kevin here. It's been a while since we've had a guest on the podcast, and I am excited to bring on Jordan of Mind and Soil. We've chatted via email quite a bit, I think, and I'm excited to have you on, Jordan. Jordan, you've got a company that provides natural and organic gardening products, and then you have a somewhat familiar mission to help 1 million people connect with the mental health benefits of gardening. So welcome on, man.
Thanks so much for having me, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, so why don't we start out with kind of your gardening journey? It kind of feels like there's a similarity between you and me.
Yeah, so I'm curious to hear your side, and for myself, the journey, it really started back in 2013, and my introduction to gardening was actually from a breakup. So I was going through my first real big heartbreak, and found myself just in like a really, really miserable headspace where I was blankly staring at the computer screen at work. And then like I was having like a really, really hard time falling asleep, essentially, unless I was like drinking myself to sleep. And so one evening or one weekend in there, I decided to go out to where my family lived about 45 minutes away. And my parents, they knew that I was going through a tough time. And so I went to sleep that evening, and it's like, one of those nights where I was just rolling around with my phone in my hand, like hoping to get a call, a message, anything. And then next thing you know, like roll over and the sun's starting to pour through the window. So it's like, all right, here's another sleepless night. And so I went downstairs to make a coffee that morning. And my mom, she came around the corner and she just asked, George, how'd you sleep last night? And I was like, I didn't sleep at all. And she just paused for a second there, and she's like, why don't we go out to the garden for a couple minutes here today? And at that point in time, I hadn't gardened at all. But a few hours later, we found ourselves in the garden. She was just like, you know what, let's kind of build a little flower bed here, and that's all that we'll do for today. And so during that time, we started bringing some river rock over to build a little bit of a retaining wall. And then we brought some soil over to start filling it up. And I just like so vividly recall, 8 or 9 years ago now, walking along that path, the wheelbarrow of soil, and for the first time feeling like those clamps of anxiety on my chest and on my neck loosen for the very first time. And I just thought like, dang, like I don't know what this gardening thing is here, but like I'm hooked. I'm here for it. This is going to play a role in my life moving forward. But then of course, at that point in time, I had no idea that it would be what I do with every kind of waking hour of my day with the business now.
Sure. Yeah, no, I was very similar. It was mostly it's sort of an addiction to video games and just being on the computer and the internet that got me into gardening with my brother. But yeah, it was just, I got hooked on not so much like feeling the anxiety wash away, but it was the sort of intrigue of the fact that you could, cultivate these things, and based on what you did, the plants responded, and you could experiment with many different methods, many different plants, like kind of that sciencey angle got me. And yeah, much like you, who would have known that I'd be, having a gardening podcast, let alone, building Epic Gardening. So it's funny how it goes. But speaking of, your company, Mind and Soil, do you mind just kind of sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. So, you fast forward to then 2019, and I was at a point in my life where I was now gardening quite a bit. And I was also looking for just like more impact and purpose in my life. I had a enterprise sales technology consulting business at that time, but I was looking for something more. And so I just started to dedicate every Friday to beginning to explore into the mental health space. And one thing that I did during that time was like the only measure of success that I put on those Fridays is like, did this energize me? And so I first looked at like some mental health technologies, and then I looked at like nature-based therapy. And then the world, about 6 months later in early 2020 started going into lockdown. And so I, was stuck at home, and I decided to start sharing my gardening journey on my Instagram account. And a bunch of my friends and individuals kind of in my network started just kind of falling in love with these stories. And that was what kind of like, a little bit of like the epiphany moment where I was like, I know that why I garden is because of how it makes me feel, how calming, how soothing, how restorative it is. And it seems like a lot of other people are resonating with this. And so I then posted a story comparing basically a little seedling that was just growing in like a store-bought mix with a seedling mix that I had made that had worm castings and compost in it, and it was growing like 3 to 4 times larger. And so it was at that moment that I was like, okay, I know that, and the Japanese concept is ikigai, of like, I can bring the gardening mental health benefits to individuals by providing them with the exact products that they need to be successful in the garden. And from that kind of moment forward, my mind's been fully consumed just with bringing that mental health and that mindful side of gardening to as many people as possible.
Yeah, it's funny that just something you never would have thought would hit you just does, and then lo and behold, here you are. So, where are you at today with the whole thing, and what's kind of the mission? I know you said you want to help 1 million people connect with the mental health benefits of gardening, and we're going to be getting into that over the course of the week, but why don't you just give a little bit of info there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this first year has really been a lot of just kind of like, yeah, I guess just like figuring it out. And what I feel as we come to the close of this first year and begin looking towards the second year is that like we have incredible like mission market fit where like people really resonate with approaching gardening from this perspective, and people are looking for more peacefulness, more calm in their life. And so the question for us then becomes like, how do we bring this to 1 million individuals? And I'm a huge believer that like the first time that you try something, when you're doing something new, like whether that was hydroponics maybe for you, or if it's somebody going mountain biking, like it's a little bit stressful, daunting, and overwhelming when you're trying something new. And so a huge part of our responsibility is to take as much of that guesswork out of the gardening process as possible through products and education, so that that first time gardener can kind of bypass or skip through any of that overwhelm, any of that stress, and be right into experiencing that mental health side of gardening, how soothing, how calming it would be. So you take, say, like our seedling mix as an example, rather than an individual needing to go to a huge big box store and find worm castings and find compost and find peat moss and perlite and then mix them all together. When they get a bag from us, it's everything in there already pre-mixed. They're all in there together. And then the bag itself is perfectly pre-measured to a 10-20 tray. So they're like completely off to the races there.
Yeah, I think removing friction in any endeavor is always a way to get people started. And so it's cool that you do that. I think we're going to talk about some of these mental health benefits that I've actually really been delving into in a layman's sense, just I guess through my own observations. So that'll be tomorrow, guys. Make sure to check out the links in the podcast description. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing. Epic Gardening is and always will be an ad-free podcast. But if you would like to support, one surprising thing you can do is actually just to review the podcast. It helps way more than you would think in iTunes, and it's very easy to do. Just head on over to iTunes, go to Epic Gardening, and drop a review. And you can also do it on your podcasts app if you're using an Apple device. Thank you so much. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.
Alrighty, well, let me know down in the comments what you thought of that episode. And when you're all set and ready to move on to the next episode, you can simply click on the tile right here, and that's going to take you over to episode number 2, where Kevin and I discuss all things around gardening's mental health benefits. So head over there when you're all set, and I'll catch you there.